Hello. I am indeed talking to you today about proving that your SEO activity is actually paying off. I have been in digital marketing for over a decade. I'm an SEO by trade, but I want to start today by telling you a story that happened way before my marketing years. Not that long before my marketing years, but when I was 16 years old. So as a 16-year-old, I had a weekend job working in a bookshop. And one day when I was working in the bookshop, a French couple came in. And at this point in time, I had been studying French for 6 years at school. So I thought, this is it. This is the opportunity that I will have to speak French to actual French people. Mainly, I wanted to try out my French, but partly I wanted to impress my colleagues. But I decided that I was absolutely going to have a go at speaking French to these delightful French people who were in my bookshop. So they were walking around the bookshop, they were checking out books, and that whole time I was thinking, okay, so what am I going to say to them? And I thought, well, it needs to be something polite, it needs to be something professional, because I'm working right now, and I decided that I would say to them, I hope you have a nice day. Pithy, right? Short and sweet. Except I couldn't really remember how to say I hope in French, and I also couldn't remember how to say have a. But nice day I could do, because day is jour, and nice I know. So I was fine, I was sorted. So the time came, they came to pay for their books, and they were just about to walk away, and they turned to me and said, goodbye, and I said, bonjour. So I tell you this story so that you can laugh at me, but also because up until this talk and preparing for this talk, I was absolutely adamant that I had forgotten everything useful that I had been taught at school. And largely that's true. But there is one thing that has put me in good stead with my SEO career. One bit of advice that I got, something that I learnt at school that was actually useful. And that's what I want to talk to you all about today, when we are looking at how to prove that our SEO is paying off. But first, I want to talk about why do we need to prove that our SEO activity is actually working. Because at the end of the day, people hired us to be experts. They should just leave us alone to be experts. But sadly, that is never the case. Firstly, we need to prove that our SEO activity is paying off to get buy-in for further SEO activity. If you happen to work in-house, then I'm sure a lot of the time you are having to prove that your great idea is actually a great idea. And one of the ways that you do that is by showing the great ideas that you've had in the past have actually been really fruitful. If you work for an agency or as a freelancer, a lot of the time you are having to spend other people's budgets. You might even be trying to get them to increase their budget. And because of that, you absolutely need to equate visibility, traffic with money. And we're not always that good at doing that in the SEO community. The other reason why you need to be able to prove that your SEO activity is actually paying off is so that you get to keep your job, which I think most of us would like to do. One of the good things I've found about having recently set up my own business is that it has got to be a really, really bad day for me to get fired. I am my employer. However, I absolutely could get fired by my clients, for instance. But by proving that the SEO activity that I am carrying out on their behalf is actually bringing in money for them, I get to keep that job for another day. And I'm sure a lot of you would like to do the same. So let's start. What was it exactly that I learnt at school all those years ago that has actually been a little bit useful in the world of SEO? It's this: scientific experimentation. Because at the end of the day, as SEOs, that's pretty much what we're doing. We're experimenting with different activity and seeing how it pans out. We iterate, we try something a little bit differently next time. But in order to do that with any level of accuracy, we have to understand all of the variables, everything else that might impact our experiment, and make sure that we are controlling those variables wherever we can, and that we understand the results when we get them. So the first step in being able to prove that your SEO activity is paying off is setting a baseline. And by that, I mean making sure you understand what data you have, and also that it's clean data, like Dan talked to us about just now. So I want us to start by thinking about tracking. because we need to be doing that now so that in the future we can prove that the work that we did was fruitful. And by checking tracking, I don't just mean making sure that you've got Google Analytics set up on every page in your website, although you would be surprised at how many clients forget it on some pages and therefore aren't tracking those pages. I mean things like making sure your data's clean. I'm sure a lot of you do things like excluding the IP address of your office from your Google Analytics, right? So that whenever any of your employees or your colleagues happen to be looking at a particular website, that data doesn't get tracked because they are essentially bringing about false positives. But do you track the IP addresses and exclude them for your remote workers? Something I love about the marketing industry is that we seem to be taking on this idea of flexible and remote working quite quickly, which is awesome. But are you making sure that your home office is also excluded from yours or your clients' Google Analytics? I naively, when I first set up my website for my new company back in December, totally forgot that I needed to exclude the IP address of my stalker. I say stalker, what I really mean is my biggest fan. I've recently got rid of Facebook, so this means she has to find out about my life through my website, which led to the really awkward conversation asking my mum for her IP address so I could exclude that, because she'd been on my website so very many times it was actually starting to skew my data. Love you, mum. So we need to make sure that the data that we're pulling into our analytics programs is clean, but we also need to make sure that we're using it effectively. How many of you, and I don't actually expect you to answer this because it's just after lunch, but think in your heads, how many of you, when you're reporting on the success of your SEO campaigns, look purely at the last-click attribution model, i.e., you only report goals that have happened and conversions that happened on your website through organic search visitors at the point of that conversion, rather than looking at conversions that have happened from a visitor who came to your site via an organic search at some point in their customer journey. Because actually, by forgetting to measure that sort of thing, you're missing out on a load of the credit towards other conversions that might be going against direct or against paid, for instance. That is something that we don't always report on, and we absolutely should be. You also need to make sure that the data about your website is being monitored, because changes happen to your website all the time. I used to have a client whose website was an absolute nightmare to work on because it was always down. Like, this website was going down several times a day, and normally for over an hour at a time. It was horrible, because every time I tried to do something, I couldn't access the website. So I was a bit annoyed about that. I spoke to their developer, and the developer said, I don't know what you're talking about. Website's working for me, which annoyed me even more, because I don't like being told I'm wrong. So I had to start monitoring this. I wanted to show you a screen grab of my favorite website monitoring tool, which is Uptime Robot, but ironically, when I went to get the screenshot, their website was down. So you'll just have to manage it. But essentially, making sure that you are checking everything that's going on with your website is a really good way to isolate some of the variables that could be impacting your SEO success. You also need to get really, really nosy. You need to know everything that your colleagues or your clients are doing in or around your websites, because if you don't, they might start making changes that could affect your SEO performance. I do need to warn you that there is a very, very fine line between getting really involved in your colleague's business and getting called into HR for being a nuisance. So please make sure that you are polite and respectful with people when you are asking them what they're doing every minute of the day. Why do we have to monitor other people's work? Because their work might be affecting the outcome of our organic traffic campaigns. There are several people that you need to be mindful of when you are working in organic search. Other SEOs. Other SEOs can ruin stuff for you. And I don't mean SEOs at other companies or SEOs at the clients. I mean your colleagues. I mean, in an ideal world, if you work in an agency or you're working with a larger internal SEO team, there'll be processes, there'll be procedures in place to stop you sabotaging each other's work. We don't live in an ideal world, definitely not if you're working for an agency. So you have to keep an eye on what other SEOs are doing. Make sure that they're not changing something that you've just changed, or they're not implementing your suggestions, but in the wrong way or in the wrong order. Because if they are, then that could be contributing to SEO success or failure that you're not even aware of is happening. Do I need to say much more? You absolutely need to know what developers are doing because developers can make or break your SEO campaigns. Often, I won't say it, but developers have the power to implement something on a website that completely undoes years and years of your work in one foul swoop. They can remove code, they can remove tracking code, they can implement a new navigation system that suddenly pollutes your entire website with a whole load of extra pages. Developers are powerful people, and you absolutely need to work with them, become a part of their team, an extension of their team, so that you can understand exactly what they're going to be working on in the future, that you can input from an SEO perspective into what's going on, and that you can be notified whenever something terrible is rolled out. You also need to be wary of this group, the marketers. These are the people who also will be impacting stuff that's going on around your website, such as brand awareness, negative press stories. They might be writing content for the website that is totally inappropriate and not at all well optimized, but you need to know what they are doing so that you can measure the impact of their work on your organic SEO success. And finally, the most powerful group of people in any office, the ones that have the potential to destroy your SEO campaign, the people that you need to watch like a hawk, the interns. These delightful little excitable, enthusiastic, just wanting to please little nightmares can absolutely destroy your hard work purely because they just want to do a good job, but they're not always well-trained or well-informed. So if you do happen to have interns who are allowed to be let loose on your website, then make sure they are checking in with you all the time whenever they think they are trying to fix an SEO problem that you spent 2 weeks arguing with a client to get implemented. Watch them. You also need to isolate other factors. These are other things that could be impacting whether you are getting more or less organic traffic to your website. That's nothing to do with the work that you're doing. If we are trying to prove that our activity is paying off, then we need to be able to isolate these variables. Website changes. Has anyone here ever experienced a development website, a staging site, going live months before it was supposed to? Has anyone discovered that the staging site went live at 8 o'clock at night when all of the developers had gone home? And by the time the developers got in the morning, the site had already been indexed? Has anyone experienced a site going live, discovering at 8 o'clock at night, waiting until the developers got in the morning for it to get fixed, only for it to get hacked straight away as soon as it went live? Just me? Looks like I win. Not really a prize that I wanted, though, I have to say. But that's a fairly major website change that is absolutely going to impact the performance of your SEO campaign. But there's small ones that will as well. Someone changes a meta title on a page you just optimized. Someone forgets to let the search bots actually get to the website once it's been launched. That's a pretty big one. All of these website changes need to be monitored in some way, and there are tools and apps that allow you to do that. Little Warden is one that springs to mind. I've not used it myself, but it has got a very good reputation in the industry. You need to be using something to make sure you are aware whenever there is a change on your website. Industry changes. Now, this is often stuff that's completely outside of our control, but absolutely is going to impact whether your organic traffic grows or declines. But it's not necessarily something that you can take credit for. Early stages, 2018, most European commercial law websites suddenly had a massive influx of organic traffic. Was it because they'd all decided they wanted to hire some amazing SEOs? You bet it wasn't. It was because of GDPR. It was because when it got to the 11th hour and everyone realized that, oh, GDPR's a thing, we actually maybe need to get some advice on this, they were going to the lawyers to find out what they needed to do. There was a huge spike in organic traffic around April, May time for most legal websites. However, it was nothing to do with any SEO activity. So it wouldn't be right for the SEOs to claim that that was a result of their doing. Competitors. They make life hard, don't they? They absolutely can ruin everything that you spend months and months trying to do. A new competitor into the industry can destroy the work that you've been working on. If you are trying to beat a new competitor, it can often be really difficult to understand where they've come from or what they're trying to achieve. Or what if you've got a competitor who's actually a massive player in another industry? It's already got a load of authority and is really well known, but they've started to diversify into your industry. You can't just tell them to back off, can you? Unfortunately, they will be impacting your SEO performance. Friends. Can I call you friends? You can't really tell me I can't, so I'm going to. You are only allowed to blame algorithm changes for a drop in your organic traffic if you also credit algorithm changes for a rise in your organic traffic. You can't do one and not the other. I have seen many, many, many people try. Truthfully, there are tweaks to the algorithm that happen daily, we know this. Some of them are going to impact more of us than others. If you are looking to blame an algorithm change, you absolutely need to know that it affects your website and your industry and the sorts of keywords that you're tracking. You cannot just blanket say, well, Google probably made a change yesterday, therefore that's the reason. Otherwise, you absolutely have to also credit Google every single time your organic traffic goes up. I've said it, therefore it's law. What else has been affected? We need to absolutely identify all of those variables, and a way of doing that is seeing what other traffic may have been impacted. Paid traffic. If you've noticed that your organic traffic has gone up or gone down, you need to look at the paid traffic as well to see what it's doing. If, for instance, your organic traffic has gone down, and the paid traffic has gone up at a similar time, it might be because there's new campaigns that have been set up and started running that are cannibalizing some of your traffic. I had that fairly recently with a client who suddenly saw traffic to the homepage absolutely drop for organic search. And I hadn't done anything to the homepage, and I was not sure what was going on. It was only when I took a look at the paid campaigns that had started running that I noticed they'd implemented a brand campaign, which they hadn't had running before. And where people used to be clicking on the organic search result whenever they searched for this particular brand, they now had the option to click on the organic or the paid listing. And because paid was higher, some of them were choosing that one instead, which meant my organic traffic was going down, but it was nothing to do with me. But when it comes to reporting, that's the kind of information I absolutely need to know and be talking to my client about. Social media. If your social media marketer is doing a good job, then hopefully they're getting a lot of discussion around your brand. And a lot of discussion around your brand can lead to more organic searches for your brand. Again, it's not necessarily something that you are doing that is driving more organic traffic to your site, but something that someone else is doing. And you need to know what your social media team are doing so that you can assign credit fairly. And if it's something that they are doing and you need to know about it so you can create a suitable landing page, then absolutely you need to be working hand in hand with them. Referrals. We often forget to mention referrals when we're talking about SEO, but actually if you've been working on a link building campaign, then hopefully you've got links that are going to be driving more traffic. So you can claim this one as an SEO victory if you've noticed that those referrals are coming from links that you've had placed. Direct traffic. Direct traffic is a small nightmare to deal with because most of the time it's not actually direct traffic. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, just to keep you interested. I'm not going to do it now. But direct traffic is something you need to keep an eye on because it is most likely going to be impacting your organic traffic. And offline, what's going on with your offline marketing? What's going on in the press? Is your company being talked about in a positive or a negative light all of a sudden? Has your chairperson gone on TV to talk about a particular aspect of the industry? If so, that's probably going to lead to more search interest in your brand, and therefore your organic traffic should be going up. So, what do we do next? Before I talk about this, I want to explain a little bit more about myself. I have some very, very strong opinions on some things. One of which is that oranges are the fruit of the devil. I do not understand them. I do not think they taste good. I don't know what pith is. Number 2, stickers. They just leave a goo behind. I don't understand that either. Why would you choose to put a piece of paper onto something that when you take it off again, there's just goo left behind? And number 3, I think any sort of site-wide metric is utter garbage. Site-wide metrics do not help you in any way in SEO. If you are reporting on the site-wide bounce rate for your website, what exactly are you telling people? You're telling them that the good luck translating that. What are you telling them? You're not telling them anything of use. When you are looking at organic traffic drops, declines, increases, you need to go granular. You need to be looking at what aspects of what pages, of what locations have changed. Google Analytics is awesome in that you can group content through content grouping that allows you to analyze movements with traffic for particular sets of pages, not just because they all sit in the same folder, but because they have been grouped together. So it could be all of your informational pages, or all of your pages that would serve some kind of commercial intent. And when you're looking at those pages in a subset, you can start to see trends with the traffic. Maybe they've all seen an uplift because of something you've been doing, or they've all seen a decrease because of something that's happened in the industry. But when you stop looking at a site-wide group of pages and start looking at individual pages and their traffic increases or drops, or a group of pages and how much organic traffic has changed for them, then you can start to build up a picture of actually what's happened. Are they pages you've actually done any work on recently, for example? If they're not, you might not be able to claim that it's your activity that's paying off. Equally, if they are pages that you've been working on and organic traffic to them has been going up, then that gives you an indication that you're on the right lines. But you also need to know exactly which keywords are driving that traffic. You need to understand whether keywords you've been working with recently are the ones that are responsible for that increase in traffic. Or perhaps it's brand terms because of a social media campaign, for instance. You need to know which keywords, what type of keywords, the keyword intent behind their use. You need to know this information on a granular level. You cannot just look at keyword movements as a whole across an entire website. Also, what time period has a change occurred over? Has it been recent? Has it been over months at a time? Has it been a slow thing, or has it been quite quick? You need to understand this, because if it's something that's happened slowly, then chances are it's a genuine increase or decrease in traffic. What locations have been affected? Is it users from a particular country that have increased or dropped off? Is it languages that are being spoken that have increased or dropped off? Are you noticing that more people from a particular country are landing on the wrong pages for their language? You need to have a look at the traffic changes for this subset of people so that you can understand whether it's something to do with the content on your site, interest in your brand in that particular area, or maybe the search queries that are being used. But if you're looking at a whole, you're never going to get that information. Also, you need to eliminate false data. Google Search Console rankings, do you fully understand what they mean? Because actually, they're a little bit misleading at times. For instance, where do you think you would get a rank position if you happen to have a feature such as a knowledge panel? Is it first? Is it fifth? Is it a sixth position? The different elements on the search results actually have different ranking positions associated to them, and that's how Google Search Console decides on the average position for a particular page or a particular search query. But if you don't know that, if you don't know which pages are the ones that are actually ranking and what sort of feature they have in the search results, you might not necessarily know what that average ranking position really means for you. Dark traffic. Ooh, this one sounds really exciting. It's direct traffic, essentially, is what I'm talking about here. It's misattribution of traffic in Google Analytics. It's where someone should have just typed in a URL and landed on a page as if by magic. But when you actually look at the data, they would have had to have memorized a URL that's about 50 characters long in order to have done that. Or they've bookmarked a page that's so deep in your website that no possible reason would it be of interest to them enough for them to bookmark it. I did a study, completely unscientific, and my science teachers at school would have been horrified. But I looked at a client's website. It was a large educational establishment, and I looked at what percentage of direct traffic was going to a page that was more than one folder deep on a website. And it was roughly 10% of the traffic. Now, that's quite a high amount of people who have got these photographic memories that they're able to remember a URL that is that deep. And this particular website was really boring, so I can't imagine any of them were bookmarking it. So dark traffic is something you also need to be aware of. Because if it's not direct traffic that's causing those people to go to the website, then what is it exactly? Potentially, some of it is organic traffic. Keyword tracking tools. These are famously unreliable a lot of the time. It might be that you are talking about keyword rankings with your clients or with your colleagues, and actually, you're not giving them a very good view of how their visibility is performing, how their website is performing in the search results, because you are looking at something that is very inaccurate at best. You also have to eliminate false assumptions. I have been working in agencies for a very long time. I have led SEO teams for quite a while now, and I have seen every conceivable excuse for why traffic has grown or dropped on a site. So I'm going to give you some hints. There is one reason that you can always trot out as an excuse for why your organic traffic has dropped. The time of the year. It works for everything. It's December. No one buys anything. It's just out of, well, it's almost Christmas, isn't it? So no one's going to buy anything unless it's a Christmas present. Or it's January. No one has any money because it's just after Christmas. No one's going to buy anything. Or it's the summer holidays. We're in the B2B industry. No one does any work over the summer holidays. They're all off to Disneyland with their kids. You can use time of the year for absolutely anything. In fact, I might just give you a free resource at the end of this that tells you all of the excuses that you could use. I could do that. Or we could continue actually proving why your organic traffic is increasing or decreasing. But seasonality is often one that gets trotted out. I actually banned it for a particular team. I told them they weren't allowed to use it as an excuse anymore because they weren't digging deep enough into the data to prove whether that was in fact the case or not. They just saw a decline around Christmas and went, meh, Christmas, innit? The other thing that you can do, if you've noticed that your organic traffic is actually growing, is just tell people it's because you're an awesome SEO. You don't have to back anything up. There's a positive percentage going on, therefore that's proof enough, surely. Just tell them that you're awesome at SEO and think no more of it. Don't actually look into why your activity is paying off. Just assume it's all good. And just hope that next month it's not gone down. If it has gone down, though, just blame the time of the year. You're sorted, really. Or you can actually prove whether your activity is paying off or not. 2 questions you need to ask yourself after you have controlled and understood all of the other variables. Has this happened before? Have you seen this increase in organic traffic before in a similar market with a similar set of demographics to a similar set of pages? Have you seen this drop occur before in similar circumstances? If so, do you know what caused it last time? Did you notice any trends, any patterns? You need to investigate what happened last time and see if there's anything that correlates with that increase or decrease in organic traffic this time, because that is going to start giving you clues as to whether it's your activity or some outside force that's caused it. Also, are the changes sudden? Because this is a really worrying one. If the change has happened overnight, your organic traffic suddenly plummeted to 0, you've probably got a tracking issue. If it's suddenly gone over the past couple of days, then it might be an algorithm change. If there's suddenly been an increase overnight, then maybe it's something one of your other marketing teams has been involved in. But you need to understand the context of where in the timeline this has actually happened. And once you've understood exactly what work you and your colleagues and your clients have been carrying out on and around your website, and you've controlled all of the other factors, or you're aware of them, and you've got the results, you've looked in with a granular lens at all of the different traffic results and which pages, which countries, etc., then you can start to work out if you can claim credit as an SEO for the organic rise, or if you can just fire yourself because you're clearly not doing a good enough job and all of the traffic's gone down. I hope I never get to the stage where I have to fire myself. But this is the point where you can actually work out whether your activity is paying off or not. And when you know that, you need to communicate those changes well. That means relaying it to your clients, to your colleagues, in a way that actually brings it back to money. Because at the end of the day, that's pretty much what every organization wants. It's either awareness or it's money. And your activity has to bring either awareness or money for it to be worth anything to them. Unfortunately, that's often the case. So in order to communicate change as well, you need to speak their language. Unless you're me, I should probably not try to speak another language ever again. But if you can, you need to communicate in a way that resounds with them. And I can't even speak my own language. That's concerning. I did get someone the other day at the hotel that I was staying at commend me on how good my English is. So, thank you. I've been speaking it for over 30 years now. Oh, well. You need to communicate to them in a way that makes sense to them. So if they are looking at a particular set of KPIs, then talk to them about those KPIs. If they're looking at particular conversion metrics, talk to them about those. You need to communicate that your activity is paying off in a way that they care about. And also, be okay with admitting failure. If it is your activity that has led to an organic traffic drop, hold your hands up. Admit to that, because it's the only way that you are going to learn, and it's the only way that your colleagues and your clients are going to have trust in you. Thank you so much for listening to me. I really do hope you have a nice day. Bonjour.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I get the clipper. Thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. And we've actually got some time for questions. Who has a question for Helen?
I can answer in French if you want.
OK. I'll ask you in French.
Oh, no. That was not part of the deal. Je voudrais un croque monsieur.
That wasn't bad. You're going to eat well.
Is that what I asked?
What I heard there in that was more multi-channel marketing. It's SEO as part of a multi-channel acquisition. And you're saying, let's get our fair share.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you use linear attribution?
It depends, actually.
Or the one that goes like that?
The one that goes like that. Whichever one shows SEO in the best light is the one that I use. It depends, I would say, on what type of client you've got, to what sort of website, and what matters to them. For some clients who have got a long lead time, for instance, they might like to look at a more of an equal attribution model, so that if SEO has been a touch point at any time in that journey, it's something that they can report on. For other people, if it's quite a quick campaign, they might just want to see last click attribution, or first and last click, for instance.
OK.
I have a question for Helen. Helen, c'est moi. You said that if you have done something that made the organic traffic drop, it's okay with failure, put up your hand. So did that happen to you?
Me? No, I'm the world's best SEO. Seasonality was the problem with my campaign.
Oh, it's too
it was
bad.
the time of the year. Were you aware that December's a really bad month for everything?
Terrible.
There have been occasions where campaigns have not gone the way that I'd hoped they would go.
And what was the result when you did own up to that?
It depends client to client. Not that it's happened a lot of times. It depends client to client, really. It depends on their level of understanding of what SEO is and how much of a part it has to play in other things. Part of what I like to do whenever I take on a new client is actually give a little bit of training so that that whole process is a lot easier. So if there are times when an activity hasn't paid off like I hoped it would, they have a better understanding of why that might be. Trying to just cover it with, well, SEO is a long burn, it takes ages, it's a slow thing. It doesn't normally work with most clients. So just being truthful, I think, is the best way forward.
OK, thank you.
Brilliant stuff. One more question, or we'll just call it a day for today. Thank you very much. Big round of applause. That was amazing.